Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I know we're going to have some more who come in here as we go, but let's go ahead and get started. Um, my name is Kara Goodwin, and I'm the host of the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. And I'm so excited today to be joined in this live stream with Christine Lang. Christine is an amazing medical intuitive. She is a former attorney who became a medical intuitive, and I will be excited to hear this story again because it's a great story. She has a special gift to see people's energy and have conversations with their spirits. And as a translator for each person's spirit, Christine helps clients receive clarity on how their stressors resulted in the life that they're currently living. She's also the author of The Body Whisperer and has another book on the way next year. So, welcome, Christine. I'm so excited to be with you again. Thanks for
Thank
being here.
you. Always good to spend time with you.
Well, thank you. And just for everybody who has joined us here, I'm going to ask some questions, and then for the second half, I'll open it up, and you can either type your questions in or you can raise your hand. But to begin with, I'd love for you to just give us a little bit of an overview of how you got into this work from being a, high achieving attorney and living that kind of competitive lifestyle. Having read the Body Whisperer, I remember it was really like a lot of ingrained, competition and achieving and so forth. And then you come into medical intuitive. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. During my second year of law school, I developed allergies and not asthma, but so much the constant runny nose, congestion, sneezing. I sound like I was always had a cold. And it was back before the days of the meds they have now that don't make you drowsy. So my options were to take Benadryl and drink Diet Coke to stay awake or walk around with a box of tissues. And so by the time I got out of law school, I was really frustrated with it and started searching what was then called alternative medicine to look for a cure for my allergies and started working with homeopathic remedies, studied with the National Center for Homeopathy and got really proficient. Probably got rid of, half my allergies that way. And that let me know I was on the right path and the universe likes to leave those little trail of breadcrumb for you. And so following those breadcrumbs, I realized that when my stress was higher, my allergies were worse. So I started taking Tai Chi and yoga to work on my stress. And I started studying Buddhism and meditating. And I started noticing after 6 or 8 months of meditating, which I was terrible at first, but when I first started meditating, I started noticing that I was more sort of calm and peaceful all day and a little more intuitive throughout the day, just had kind of insights that I wouldn't necessarily have. And that motivated me to keep meditating. And then I studied Reiki. And before I offered a friend an energy treatment, I would say, well, let me sit down and like change clothes out of my lawyer suit and meditate to shift, gears and change channels in my brain. And when I would do that and meditate, I would just get a word or a phrase and I would usher it away like any other thought and it would float back in. And so I would mention it to the friend and they're like, how do you know that happened yesterday? Or that's so true. That is when my neck started hurting. And finally I realized I was getting information from the spirit world and went and sat down in my meditation chair and said, who am I talking to? And my spirit said, welcome home. And tears started flowing down my face. And she's like, this is who you came here to be. Get ready. And I started sitting in meditation for 3 or 4 hours a day and was self-taught, right? She started sharing with me, well, this is how, we store stress in the body depending on how you internalize different stressors. And that creates weak spots in the body and just really breaking down the connection between how we experience stress and then how our body shows up with different symptoms, chronic symptoms. And so as I started making that connection, sharing it with my friends, they got better. They told their friends about it and a practice was born. And that was almost 30 years ago. And so now I work as a soul channel and a medical intuitive and, sit with people and they frequently come to me initially because of physical symptoms, but they stay with me as a client for years because I can translate their spirit for them and help them start learning how to hear their spirit so that they get advice on their relationships, their career, their relationship with themselves, how to raise their kids, all that stuff. I always say your spirit is like the best coach and therapist and health practitioner you'll ever find because your spirit is so dialed into you and what makes you tick. So that is what I do now, and I teach classes in it as well.
Mm. So it's fascinating, like, because I described you as a medical intuitive, and it obviously goes well beyond that. But do you feel that you're particularly suited for like physical ailments and trying to kind of get to the heart of those, or do you not really see a differentiation?
I would say almost every chronic physical symptom. I mean, if you fall off the curb and break your ankle, that probably doesn't have a big stressor associated with it, but chronic ongoing symptoms, low back pain, IBS, digestive issues, skin issues, headaches, hormonal imbalances, all of those sorts of things tend to start or have as their originating source the stressors within our relationships, whether it's our relationship with ourselves or our relationship with other people. And
Mm.
so I like to try to work with people and sort of get to it early on, right before it's become a big physical symptom, because everybody's spirit is always sending them messages. First, it starts off as feelings, which in our culture we're given very little advice on how to, feel those, honor those, work with those. And so it starts off as feelings, then you might see weird coincidences, and then eventually if you're not, if you're suppressing your feelings or you're not allowing yourself to honor what's true for you, then you will start to get symptomatic, right? So people will say, this symptom just came out of the blue. And their spirit always goes, no, it doesn't. The blue. It was there. It was, for days or weeks or months. We were, your spirit's trying to get your attention about something, about a boundary you need in your relationship with your sibling, or, how you would need, it's time for a different set of boundaries with your kids, or different things that at work, how you're not taking good care of yourself. And by the time we get to physical symptom, we've not noticed, right? We get so used to just pushing the emotions down, like I'll deal with them later, but later never comes, right? Because we're so used to being performative. So it's really helpful to stop and feel, where am I holding tension in my body right now? And what is my body trying to tell me?
Wow. Yeah. I love that. It makes me think too with all of the I don't know how much you pay attention to like the planetary changes and all of like the solar flares and all of this that's happening. We've had so much going on lately. We had last week there were all these geomagnetic storms and the northern lights were like moving south. You could like see the northern lights from way far south compared to normal. And of course, that is energy, right? So when the
Right.
sun is emitting solar flares and coronal mass ejections, and then the magnetosphere is weakening and things like that's going to affect us from because we're energy beings. I don't know if do you see much crossover with that?
That's not really something my spirit brings me information about. So I know it impacts us just like so many things impact us, but I don't get a lot of information on that because I feel like there's certain fields that we each are guided towards.
Yeah.
And there's certainly crossover. I don't fill myself out as a medium, but this morning in my session, somebody's spirit came in. Her mom passed away a couple years ago, and her mom showed up and said, "Let me give you my explanation of why that's happening." And I'm like, "Okay, mom, come on in." Right. So I don't, that's not what I typically do all day. But there, like you say, there's lots of crossover or overlap in the different skill sets. But in general, we kind of stick to our areas of specialty, and we each work differently. Every medical intuitive, every intuitive works somewhat differently, right? I
Yeah.
do less with diagnoses. I feel like Western medicine does great at diagnoses. It doesn't do so great with the medicines for chronic symptoms and the treatments and the side effects and all of that. So that's where I want to come in and go, okay, we know what Western medicine says you have and what your treatment options are, but let's get your spirit's perspective on that and get underneath what's really, a contributing cause, whether it's 50% of that back pain or 95% of your back pain. It's worth addressing that to get your body the chance for the most complete healing.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. Well, I wonder how you receive these messages. So when you're sitting with a client, you were describing like the mom came in and or whether it's just that, if you're feeling reflections within your own body in terms of what's happening with them, or how does it express for you?
So for me, I'm largely clairaudient. I get visuals and I get body knowings where I can feel things, but I'm really clairaudient. And so I hear this kind of narrative. So as soon as I see a picture of a person or I start talking to you, I also hear your spirit. And she sounds similar to you, just a softer voice because our regular voice has our ego mixed in with it. So don't forget to call that guy back. Don't forget to buy dog food on the way home. Those sort of urgency pieces put that edge to our voice that when we hear ourselves on recording, we never like it because it's got the ego mixed in. And what a lot of times what we hear in our head, we'll get a little whisper from our spirit and it feels gentle. And that's our impression of what we want our voices to sound like. And then we hear it on a recording. We're like, oh, that's so when I hear, your spirit, for instance, like it sounds similar to you, there's just a light softness to it. And then if someone else's spirit comes in or guide or whatever, I just get this sense of movement of energy out of the corner of my eye. And I'm like, oh, and then I feel this energy pressure. And I'm like, oh, someone else is here. So I teach a monthly class called Your Energy Matters. And we might have 200, 300 people show up for the class. So like an hour before, all these guides and beings start showing up. And I start feeling it like this pressure. And I'm like, okay, I'm starting to feel like I'm in a trash compactor. Everybody has to back up. And then they all go, whoop, and so by the time I sit down to start the class, my office is so toasty warm because there's just so much energy in here. And then after class, my husband said, you always talk like a mile a minute because all that energy's been running through me and it takes me a minute to kind of come back down. So that intensity is very cool that you can open yourself to be that channel and allow that many different frequencies to come through.
I love that. And you were saying like that you feel it. It seemed like, well, from my perspective, is on the left side, but maybe you were pointed to the right. Is there do you always feel it
It's
all
all
over?
over. Yeah. And and my spirit, like my spirit tends to come at a right angle to me, right? We just kind of have that and she'll come as a certain color, right? Then she gives me color signals about a message. Like if she shows me emerald green, it means, emeralds are so expensive because they have lots of layers and it takes a lot of layers to build up that emerald stone. And so when she shows me emerald green, it means there's a lot of layers to this answer. Don't go back to the client with the first thing I say. Just be patient, listen to the whole thing. So I'm like, okay. So there's things shorthand like that. And when I teach my students I'm in my energy healing series that I teach once a year, that the third attunement part is all a breakdown of how to hear your spirit and how to start working out that shorthand. Because to me, what's so important is that my spirit can give me a whiff of cigarette smoke. And what it tells me is that client has compromised lungs, not because she smokes, but it's just a fast shorthand way to say it. And so I can get a whole paragraph of information in 10 seconds because it's all in this shorthand. Right. And so the longer you learn to connect with your spirit, the more she's going to work with you and give you this shorthand of sorts. So your conversations get, more and more informative.
And then that would be different for other people. Like I'm assuming. So if somebody takes your class, are you helping them to tune into like, okay, well, here's how you can smell cigarettes. Here's how you can get my shorthand.
No, everybody has their own. You're right. Everybody has their own. And there's some commonality. I mean, certain colors or visuals tend to mean the same thing, which is why I teach in a group because people are like, oh, I saw that same color. That's what that means, right? And so you learn faster by hearing other people's versions of shorthand. You can go ask your spirit, is this what you meant when you showed me this color or this image? And it speeds up that learning process. I mean, it took me years and years to get more than just a word or a phrase when I would sit in meditation. And now I teach people, and within, a couple weeks or months of meditating, they're getting messages from their spirit. I'm like, oh my gosh, that took me so long.
Yeah.
What did I remember saying to my spirit? Am I just a slow learner? She's like, no, it's like you ran down a dark hallway and flipped on the light switch and everybody just rolls down after you. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm happy to be that person.
Yeah.
Stuff. So
I feel like that does happen. I've heard this from other people, and it does make sense where it's like, if you're blazing the trail,
yeah, you come to be the guide.
right, and then you kind of activate people so that they can just kind of like come up where you are.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I guess attunements are, right? You know?
And to me, so for me, an attunement is opening up the natural ability everybody already has to do their own self healing, to channel healing energy for others. So you're opening that up, and then I always say in my classes, like, I am not trying to create a mini me, right? I don't want to do that. This is giving everybody back what I think is an inherent right, which is the ability to do healing work on yourselves and your kids and your family members. And then if people want to go further, and I have therapists who incorporate it into their practice. I have nurses who've incorporated it into their practice, right? But that isn't why I teach it, right? It's lovely when people find a way to bridge their world and the healing arts, but it's not because I'm trying to make people do what I'm doing. It's just everybody should be able to tap into whatever the healing abilities are they want to use for themselves and their family.
Mm. Well, and to piggyback on that a little bit, here's a fun fact that you don't even know till right now.
Okay.
I have had a tummy bug for since like the night before last. I woke up and I was like being sick in the night, and I that has not happened in
When did that happen?
like overnight, Sunday
Oh,
night, like 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning.
oh,
And I basically slept all day yesterday and did a little tiny
oh,
bit of and you and I have been back and forth about this date and time where it's,
yeah.
"Oh, we've gotta change it a little bit," and then we changed back, and it was like all this and I'm like, "I cannot cancel the" I canceled everything yesterday, and, I was like, "I can't cancel this. I'm just gonna have to pray that I'm gonna have the energy." So I'm like and I'm kind of like not I wasn't like deliberately telepathically like, "Christine, help me," but it was just like,
I
I'm
just asked. Let me check you right now, and what I wanna do is just kind of scan you and see if you have live virus cells or if they're all dead and your body's
"Oh,
killed them all,
okay.
and then I'll ask your spirit, is there anything we need to do to support the healing process, okay?
Oh, okay. Thank
Okay,
you."
hold on. Fine. So your body has killed it all, so that's good. Good job, immune system,
Yeah.
but it depleted your vitamin D a lot to do that, so you'd wanna take how much vitamin D do you take each day?
I have not been taking a supplement lately, so, I do have some supplements, so
Okay. So I would probably take 10,000 the first day and then 5,000 each day after. And that's in functional medicine, integrated medicine, 5,000 I use a day is typically what they recommend of vitamin D. And when you've had any kind of an illness, it really depletes your vitamin D.
okay.
And so yours feels like it's on fumes. And so it's just gonna give you a slower recovery. So
Um,
if you can take that vitamin D, you'll notice like, oh, a little boost in your energy and in mental clarity too, believe it or not. Because when the vitamin D levels get low, we get a little bit of that kind of like hungovery, brain foggy feeling after you've been sick.
mhm.
That has something to do with the vitamin D levels. I don't know what.
Oh, well, thank you, because I've taken a homeopathic approach, which I know you can appreciate.
Sure.
So I was doing, like, rest talks and is that what it is? No, rest box? Is it
Rust tox is one. Yeah.
yeah, rest talks, okay. And then some nat myrrh and, like, the cell salts. But, yeah, I'll do that, thank you. But I was kind of like, um, okay, higher self, like, let's work this out because even if I can just have enough energy for an hour, that'll be fine, and I'll sleep the rest of the time. That's okay. If we have to
Yeah.
do but just please let me be normal for those
It's
live
normal.
and I woke up and I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine."
Right.
Like, and I
Okay.
went to bed early last night. I literally slept most of the day and, got up and I was like, I'm really fine."
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
I'm
Well,
like
and for you for conserving your energy too, right? Sometimes we have to just listen to the body.
yeah, that's true. But just when you were talking about, like, working with students and kind of how there's this organic sort of, like, magnetism that comes from interacting with your work, I feel that there was definitely that was a factor in this
I'm
whole
happy to
thing.
send you healing energy. Yes.
Oh, well, thank you. I think you did unintentionally, so
Okay.
so, are there like energy imbalances or blockages that you see kind of more often than others with your clients, like things that seem to be happening a lot with people, or is it pretty much an individual case by case?
I mean, there's certainly patterns. So I think of it as like zones of the body that of where we store our energy imbalances or struggles, right? So if we get a lot of neck and shoulder discomfort, that frequently is where we carry our sense of what we're responsible for. Right. Whether that's accurate or not, our sense of what our responsibilities are tends to get reflected here. So if you feel like I have to do it all myself, I do the most in my marriage, I do the most in the household, then you're likely to have stiffness in that area, right? And so it's not that certain people have certain blocks, it's that you can look at the body like a roadmap. And so people who have a lot of digestive issues, the first question I ask is, what part of your life are you having trouble digesting? And
Mm.
it's amazing how often people go, "Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of that before, but this is the part," right? And it gives you a starting point, and it's not that one size fits all by any stretch, right? But you can look at different parts of the body and what they represent in terms of that's the part of the body we tend to store stress about these different topics. And then it starts as a jumping off point for then you can journal and meditate and ask questions of yourself to tap into why is this symptom so recurring? What could it be about?
Okay, that makes sense. Let me come back on here. Sorry. Yeah, okay. I love that with the neck and well, it seems that like our language maybe gives us indicators because it's like the digestion and what can't you digest that's going on in your life and kind
And
of like
like
the
eye
weight of the
issues
world.
or ear issues, it's like, what are you afraid of seeing? What are you afraid of hearing? A lot of times that relates to that. Or I have somebody who's had a tremendous loss of vision and was diagnosed with a very strange, rare autoimmune thing that is showing up in her eyes. But she also lost both of her parents within a 2-year span unexpectedly. And she'd been married for a year and her husband left at the same time. He's like, "This is too sad. It's too much grief." He's very immature. But it's too sad, too much grief. And he left, and it was like, "Wow, you must be afraid of what am I gonna see next?" And she's like, "I am." Right? It's like it's just how her body's registering the trauma of so much unexpected loss, right? It could have been in her ears, it could have been in her digestive system, right? So a lot of how we develop symptom pictures has to do with how we internalize stress. So a boss can walk into an office and scream and yell at everybody, have some sort of tantrum. And, this person gets a stomach ache, this person gets a headache, and this person's low back goes out as a response to the same stressor. And it has to do with how each person internalized that stress, right? So the person with the stomach ache, that or stomach area is like where we think store negative thoughts about ourselves, how we see ourselves and how we think other people see us. So the person who got the stomach ache from the boss yelling is probably thinking, "Oh my God, I should have done a better job so the boss wouldn't be so mad," right? And is blaming themselves. And the person who has the low back pain, that low back area is where we tend to store feelings of being disempowered. So that guy might be saying, "Oh my gosh, I always work for these bosses that are abusive and I never have any say and I'm always disempowered," right? So he related to the stress as a reflection of that, right? So you can have the same stressor but have it lead to different symptoms in each person.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. And it has to
It's
do with how we were raised and how we were taught to view the bad things that happened to us,
oh,
right? So in general, we either tend to blame out or blame in. So if something goes wrong, do you tend to say, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe that guy did that," or "How did I give the wrong signal? How did I mess that up?" Right? And one isn't better than the other, right? They're both, and we can each do either one, but most of us have a go-to, right? In general, again, big generalization. People who blame in tend to have a little lower self-confidence than people who blame out. Doesn't mean people who blame out are fun, but but there is that sense of weakening oneself whenever something happens by taking that blame. And it usually means you were raised by a pretty critical parent or a narcissistic parent or a neglectful parent where somehow you were made to think that if you weren't happy, it was your fault, something you weren't doing.
wow.
And so just looking at patterns like that allows you to start transforming them. So now you start relating to your emotional and mental discomforts by questioning the underlying assumptions that we make, which is I've screwed up or he doesn't trust me or she's not giving me a break or whatever that is. When we can start questioning our beliefs that we think are facts, but they're really just our assumptions, when we start questioning those, we kind of free up the body to relate to what's really happening in the moment versus our old patterns of reaction.
Wow. There's so much there. Like
Okay.
you've given so much insight in like 2 minutes, but there's like so much for people to like really take in, including myself. Evening. So for people who have joined us here on the Zoom, I can open it up now for questions. So if you would like to ask anything, there's a little react button down at the bottom of Zoom, and you can just click that, and then there's a raise hand. So click the raise hand, or you can type your question in the chat if you want to. And I see somebody already. Let's see. Let me read this here. I am 51 and have had multiple sclerosis for 20 years. My main symptom is physical mental fatigue. It has meant big lifestyle changes, especially putting boundaries around my time, which is a lesson I feel I need to learn. I'm apparently doing really well according to my neurologist. Still, if I don't keep up with daily naps, I can very quickly become more ill. I'm wondering if there's anything else I'm missing about what the message is about having this illness. I see a nutritional kinesi
Yep.
kinesiologist, there we go, sorry, for supplement and dietary advice.
So, the behavior of MS in the body is different for each person, but in general, the mental and emotional underpinnings of it are life is too hard. So it frequently occurs for people who either in their childhood or at some point in their adult life aren't given permission by themselves or by others to set boundaries around their energy output and what other people take from them. And so I don't this one person I don't know her, but that idea of I think she's on the right track that she has to prioritize her self-care in this lifetime. And it's amazing that we will give ourselves permission to rest when we have a physical ailment, right? Like when you had your stomach bug, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna have to just, do very bare minimum for the day. But if we needed a mental or emotional break, or if we needed to not give out so much energy to others, it's really hard for us to give ourselves permission to take that rest, right? And as a culture, we are now learning to incorporate that with the focus on mental health and well-being and all of that. But when we were growing up, it was like, get in there and just deal with it, right? Just put on the happy face and keep on marching forward. And so sometimes the body will do for us what we can't do for ourselves. We can't give ourselves permission to slow down, to really put up boundaries, to monitor how much energy our family takes from us or the people that we care about. So I have a client who came to me with MS, and this is an example, but she was raised to think that if you care about somebody, then you're as upset as they are. So if each of her, she's 5 or 6 friends, one of them was always going through some kind of crisis, with one of their kids or an illness or they're in a car accident. And so she was always sort of stirred up and outputting. Oh, I've got to go take food to this person. And now I have to go do. So until she could keep everybody level to where she was, she wouldn't allow herself to be peaceful and content. And so that lack of boundary had her kind of running all the time in high performance mode. And then when she got MS, she gave herself permission to, I can't do that anymore. And after she, her friends and she learned to have different boundaries around that, because of course she had attracted friends who had that same kind of mob mentality of sharing one big pool of energy. Once she did, her symptoms went into remission. Right, and that's a more dramatic story. It's more common that people work with it for a long period of time, like this client is saying, like, I have to really watch how I spend energy, how I honor myself, how I honor what is true for my body and me right now, which is I only have this much energy,
Mm.
right? And so sometimes our spirits bring us conditions as a teacher, right? It might be a present with awful gift wrap on it that we don't really like, but it's something that supports us in making different boundaries and relating to ourselves differently than how we were taught to as children.
Mm. It's really fascinating how you can see so clearly like the links between how we tick
Yeah.
as people, like as personalities, whether we have
Yeah.
like codependency traits or narcissistic traits or whatever it might be, and then how that like it's so
Right.
logical when you say it.
Well, I think. if you put yourself in the place of your spirit or somebody else's spirit, like they want to help this person understand that's a limiting belief that's actually not true. Like, how do you communicate that? And so sometimes you have to like prove it by having them live differently. For instance, I had a woman who was saying, well, I have to do all this stuff for my dad because he's old and he doesn't have any friends. And, some of his friends have died. Some of them he just doesn't talk to. So I'm the only one. And I said, but he lives in this over 55 community. I know he has, resources there. He just prefers to use you. And he's convinced you're the only option. And I said, what would happen if you were in a car accident tomorrow and you were in a coma for a month? And she said, oh, he would figure it out. I'm like, yeah, he would. So she just started slowly pulling away. And the dad was really proud of her career. So she started saying, oh, Dad, I just got I got this big job opportunity thing at work and I'm going to do this one project. And he would say, oh, okay, okay. And he would grumble about it, but he would go get himself resourced another way. And sometimes she helped him. She set him up with ride shares of Uber and different things. But and that idea of saying, okay, how else could my spirit be trying to help me with this? Instead of just being at war with our body and at war with our symptoms, if you can get curious about them instead, so helpful.
Mm, that's awesome. Okay, Millie says, thank you so much.
Oh, sure.
Anna asks if you have any messages for moving forward. She says she's taken time to heal her emotions and the pain on her right side, hip and shoulder has gone away.
So if it's gone away, then what is she asking? I'm not sure.
Good question.
And
Anna, if you haven't
tell me what
shared-
you want to help with.
Yeah, or if you want to raise your hand, you can come on.
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand and come forward, and then I can see you. You just have to turn your camera on and
Yeah. Okay, while she is figuring that out, I also wondered, like, I don't know if you go much into like soul design or soul purpose or anything, but if you see like kind of that framework and how that is showing up in health related issues in terms of like why, like the bigger picture of why people come. So
yeah, and I would say one of the things that I think people get maybe disillusioned by a little bit is they assume they have a really big purpose that their spirit will be disappointed if they don't do it. And so one of the things that they all kind of go, "Oh, really?" is when their spirit says, I want you to love well and be well loved. And I want you to really learn to be present in your body. And I want that things that maybe don't sound very important, right? It's not, I came here to cure cancer or I came here to have this, run the school board of Pennsylvania, right? It's usually not that kind of thing. It is usually about how we move through forgiveness, how we expand ourselves in the topic of compassion, things like that are a lot of subtle, nuanced layers that each lifetime we come and we want to experience that more. So we might script before we come here certain parents and certain situations that'll occur for us in childhood to give us things to forgive and have compassion about and work through. And so then our journey is really about staying on the journey, right? Our purpose is about honoring what is true for us and really working through that, not accomplishing a thing, right? How we tend to relate to our soul's purpose is very performative based, right? It's like, what job am I applying for? And spirits kind of go, what is she talking about? Right. That's not how they relate to it. They're like, I want you to have raised your children and modeled for them what a loving relationship looks like. I want you to, teach your son that you left your husband when he started being verbally abusive. So he knows it's not okay to treat people that way. And he knows to always advocate for himself. Right. Or different things like that's part of your life purpose. And it might not seem big and grand, but it's so important.
I love that. And so let's see here. Anna says more clarity, right leg aches. Right legs.
Well, without seeing her or hearing her, I can't get a read on just a name and a right leg ache. So she'd have to come on camera if she wanted something specific about that.
Okay. Feel
Right.
free to turn your video on and unmute if you want to give a little more context, Anna.
And I will say in general, the right side of your body represents your future and the left side of your body represents your past. So people who have all right-sided symptoms, it tells me that they have more fear about stepping into the future. And people who have a lot of left-sided symptoms usually have unresolved things from their past that are preventing them from being in the present moment, right? So so something that is, a belief that you have, like, well, because I was raised poor, I'll never be able to fill in the blank. Or because my parents got divorced when I was 5, I'll never be able to be in a healthy relationship. Whatever those things are that we think our past so defines us, you will see that in the left side of the body being the weaker side.
Mm. That's
Yeah.
really interesting. And then is it also like the right side is masculine and the left side is feminine as well?
I think, to be honest, I think decades ago that was true. I don't really feel like the universe shows up for us in that way anymore. I haven't had anybody's spirit refer to that in almost 10 years, right? I really feel like it's
Interesting.
going more towards future and past, and that's how it's always introduced to me by people's spirits. But also, people have different sciences, right? Each therapist works differently, each medical intuitive works differently. So if that really resonates for you, but more and more clients are coming in and going, that doesn't really resonate for me anymore about the male female. I'm
Oh,
like, okay, well, here's what I'm hearing, right? And I mean, science gets updated, right? It makes sense that all this stuff gets updated as well. So,
I love it. That's so cool. Wait, so Millie has a little more
yeah,
more
Millie, you just have to
something.
come on camera so I can see you and hear you.
She is, and then you can just unmute.
Yeah.
And she's unmuted.
So
Hi.
what are you wanting clarity on, dear?
Well, I suppose I've learned the lesson about, or I'm maintaining the lesson about needing my own space and time. And I was working as a therapist and helping people and feeling very good through that. And that I had to stop doing that because I
Right.
didn't have the energy, the cognitive energy. So now I'm thinking, okay, I've lived like this for 20 years. Do I need to upgrade to some other kind of, I still have to work on it because I'm naturally quite a people pleaser and everything.
Yeah. And I would say, because sometimes when people say people pleaser, I want to break that down. And for you, what I would say is your energetic boundaries are super porous. Okay,
Yeah.
and when I say porous, here's the analogy I give. If I was going to walk through a smoky bar and I took a piece of metal and a piece of wood and a piece of tissue paper and I walk through the smoky bar and we come outside, the piece of metal smells like the metal. Piece of wood might smell a little bit like cigarette smoke, and the piece of tissue paper definitely smells smoky because that's so porous it absorbed the smoke. Your boundaries energetically look like tissue paper or like a sea sponge, like everything just goes through.
Yeah.
And your spirit is telling me now what made you a good therapist is you could so clearly feel what was happening to the other person because you basically blended with them.
Yes.
So you merge energies, then you can feel, and they're like, man, Millie is like the most spot on therapist. I'm like, yeah, because she's in there with you, not to her benefit, right? And
No.
so then after the session, you weren't taught how to clear all that energy out of you, how to not take that on, right? So I would say if you wanted to go back to doing therapy, I would work on visualizations to strengthen your energetic boundaries. Right now, your spirit is saying the only way you know to do energetic boundaries is to physical distance. I've got to sit in my house and be by myself.
But which is what I do.
So what I would say,
Okay.
your next step, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Step 2, Millie version 2 is
Yeah.
is having energetic boundaries that are based on a visualization.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to do this really fast, but on my website in my Your Energy Matters class, the very first one I taught in January, there's a whole hour spent on this topic, but I'm going to give you the quick rundown right now. So there's two things. One is the energetic boundaries so that you don't pick up people's energy. And the second is how to flush yourself or clear yourself when you do pick up other people's energies. Okay. And so for you, the energetic boundaries, we want them to be more like you're in a big glass bubble.
Yeah.
So I think that's having this glass bubble is symbolizing I'm happy to output. I want to be like this ray of sunlight. I want to shine my wisdom and my positive light to the person in front of me, but I don't want to do any energy exchange.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting. Yeah.
And so if you hold that energy follows intent, it's I teach that all the time. So if you hold the intention by doing a visualization of being in a bubble, then that your energy will follow it and it will not do the typical energy exchange and blending with somebody. Okay. And so I'd be working on that and consciously thinking about your boundaries. And if you just start talking to somebody who comes into your house and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm starting to feel a weakness of this, drop a sheet
Yeah.
of glass between you. Just visualize a sheet of glass dropping down between that symbolizes the same thing. I want to be present with this person. I don't want to exchange energy.
That's
Right?
just, yeah, it's like hygiene almost.
It's energetic hygiene. It's exactly what it is. Yes. And that idea of protecting yourself, it doesn't harm the other person. But whenever we're talking, like right now, you and I are talking, we are exchanging energy, right? Now, the energy coming through me is from your spirit. It's very vibrational. You're in good shape, right? It's not harming you at all. But I will just say, as I'm talking to you, you are wide open, like, hi, how can I be of service to you, right? And that's fine, but it's very habitualized. I would venture
Yes.
to say you were taught as a child not to have any boundaries. If you did, you were being selfish. Your job is to be there for other people.
I was told off a lot. I can't quite remember what I was told to do, but I was told not to do a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we kind of get groomed, especially as women, to be pleasing to others, to be of service, to be helpful. And it's not that those are bad things, but we're taught to prioritize that over self-care, over noticing how it impacts us. And so then we just lose track of it. We stop noticing it. And then somebody says, well, how did that day impact you? I guess I'm fine. Right. And then we really think, actually, I'm kind of drained, kind of tired. Right. But that's a muscle we have to develop to go in and you can't self-regulate without having the self-awareness. Right. And we have to train ourselves to tune into how hard was this day? How do I feel? We notice if we're totally exhausted or really hungry or really thirsty. We don't notice all the nuanced levels until we get there.
Yes.
Does that resonate for you?
It really, really resonates. And I hadn't realized, I think that exchange is really good. I think that's what I'm here for, to sort of like do this, but I'm always
Here's
exhausted.
the model I would give you instead.
Yeah.
What I give to my therapist is picture a huge satellite dish in front of you. And what you're agreeing to do is let's say you're in session with a client. Let what they say land on that satellite dish. And it's registering. You're witnessing it. They feel seen and heard. But the satellite dish is there. You don't have to take it into your body and
Yeah.
know it personally to be wise about it. You can give good counsel without having experienced it yourself. That your spirit is saying it's akin to coming across somebody in a hole and jumping down in the hole with them so they really feel like you're in there with them. They'd be better served if you said, you know what, there's a ladder over there if you just walk that way, right?
Yeah.
Show them how to get out. Don't jump in the hole with them.
It
Right?
feels like a misunderstanding of love. It feels like I've somewhere misunderstood
Very good.
what
Very good.
a love thing is.
On the energy exchange level, love means being in the hole with the person.
Yeah.
Share all of it and commingle and then guide them out, right? Like you're the shepherd that goes and finds the lost sheep and gets them back in with the rest of them. And I would say that is a very old dynamic, old paradigm way of providing therapy. And it's why so many therapists burn out. It's why so many doctors and nurses burn out, right? When you can step into this higher paradigm where you recognize, oh, I'm a much more energetically sensitive person than perhaps the people who trained me to be a therapist. I need to do this in a way that is energetically conscious of how things impact me. When I read your energy, it all landed on the satellite dish. I'm like, okay, got this. I see that, how your energy pattern is, how easily you just said, come in, right? As soon as I connected. And it's very sweet, but there's no defense of the self. There's no advocacy and representation of yourself in that dynamic.
That really, really, really resonates. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You are so
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for you're welcome. And good energy advice for everyone. That good energy hygiene is so important.
Well, that's what I was feeling as you were giving those suggestions. I'm like, I'm listening with all ears. Like, oh my God, great. I need this. And I'm like, I bet we all need to hear this, because it is
One of
easy.
the cleansing visuals that I will use is I will picture standing under a waterfall and just having the water go all the way through my body like I'm a big sea sponge, right? It just goes all the way through and out. And as I'm doing it, I'm saying in my head, please flush me of any energy that is not to my benefit. Or that is vibrating lower than I need to vibrate, or any of those sorts of things where you're just asking to take out the trash, right? To just release the stuff that doesn't benefit you. So I do that, like, if I'm driving to somebody's house, when you're out there driving, everybody's very focused on getting where they wanna get, and, there's somebody almost comes into your lane and honks, and, all these different things happen. There's very little positive energy that accrues to us when we are driving around somewhere. So when I would get to a friend's house, I would usually do some sort of visual to just clear myself, so I walk into their house as clean as possible energetically.
I love that. That's great. So Elmira has asked something here, and I'll read it, but you may need to come online, Elmira. She said she studies medical genetics and really wants to know if there are any energy-based practices or mental techniques that can influence gene expression, such as turning off harmful ones or activating protective ones.
Yes, I'll give you my answer, Elmira, and then you can tell me if you want something more specific, okay? Um, so I would say in general, what we understand now about how genes turn on and off is it has a lot to do with belief. Okay. And so my favorite example of this is many years ago. This is how old I am. When Oprah was still on, she had Carolyn Mace, who's one of the first medical intuitives, on her show. And before that episode, when everybody was lined up outside of the studio in Chicago, they had people come out and say, "We're going to release a scent into the audience because it's one of our senses we don't pay enough attention to. And it's going to be totally harmless, but if that is offensive to you, you don't have to come in." Of course, everybody came in. And then they got everybody seated and said, "We're going to release it. And it's a strong smell, but it's not harmful in any way. There's nurses in the aisle if you feel, headachy or nauseous." And then the third time the person came out and said, "Okay, we're now releasing the smell and see if you can guess what it is." And everybody, raised their hand. "I think it's garlic. I think it's onion. I think it's all these kind of things." And Carolyn Mace came out and said, "How many people feel like they know what they smelled?" And like 90% of the hands went up. And she said, "There was no smell released. But your brain created it because the magic number is 3. And if you hear something 3 times, your brain begins to make it a reality." Now imagine being raised in a family where they say breast cancer runs in our family hundreds of times. The men in our family tend to die of heart disease by 65. The biggest thing to turn on a genetic expression is the belief that you are destined for it. Because your body tries to show up for you in the way that it thinks you are asking it to. And it doesn't understand, "I hope it doesn't, and this is true." Right? And so that belief ends up being really powerful indicator of how those genes are going to express. Does that resonate for you? You can unmute
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, that resonates with me. But actually, I have a problem with changing the beliefs because I try to reprogram my mind, but actually, inside of my heart, there's always a problem that I cannot take it fully and accept it from my heart. And
is
I
there
would be really grateful.
is there one belief in particular you're having trouble with?
Many beliefs, not just one.
Okay. So what I would do is I would say, instead of trying to go from "I believe this" to "I believe the opposite," right? Which is we're thinking in that on-off switch, genetic expression. Most genes have dozens of ways that they can express, right? And so what I say is inch your way along. Find something that you think could also be true, but isn't this scary? But it's not all the way over here. And work your way to something you can believe. So if somebody says to me, "I'm always in debt," and I had a client 2 days ago, "I'm always in debt, and now I want to just live like I either want to win the lottery or I want to make so much money that I can retire early." And I was like, "You're never going to believe those affirmations. I don't care if you say them 1,000 times a day, because your reality is so far from that." So I said, "Could you see it as, I'm going to start really enjoying my work and be pleased at the end of each month when I pay my bills? I'm like, oh, there's a little bit extra." And she's like, "Oh, okay, I could do that." Right. And then she builds from there to a point where she's empowered. Because this, I don't want, my family says we all get this disease, but I want this instead. This is what we call magical thinking. You're waiting for the white knight to come rescue you. And it's actually, even though you think you're saying a positive affirmation, it's disempowering because you're waiting to be rescued, and it's all externalized power. God will save me, or somebody else will invent a cure, or this other thing will happen. Still has you not having your own power back. So finding something you can say that you can believe could be true, works your way to it, is a better approach.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Beautiful. Thank you, Elmira. All right. So Anna has her hand up. This will probably be the last one. So,
Okay.
um, where did the? Oh, I can't spotlight you because you're not. Can
You
you?
have to come on camera first, right?
Yeah. Can you come on camera, Anna? There you are.
There you
Okay.
go. And then unmute yourself. Hello.
We are.
There we go. Hello. Thank you. Thank you for
Welcome.
your patience. Thank you. Everything you've said has been amazing and really
Thank you.
resonates, and especially with having the energies coming through. Um, I've been removed and healing emotionally. There, I just want more guidance on the fight or flight of letting that go. And I think the more I just kind of sit with things, the more I feel like things are being removed.
Okay. So your spirit is already talking to me, and what she's saying is that you're still afraid of being harmed until the person or people admit what they've done is wrong or acknowledge the pain they've caused you, because you feel like as long as they don't see it, you're at risk of having it be repeated on you. And that's the child mind in us. The wounded child believes things that the adult mind goes, that's not even logical. I'm not even a 5-year-old kid living in that house anymore with my mean stepdad or whatever it is. But the wounded child takes over and drives that somatic response of terror. And so what I would say is, when you notice that you're in a fearful place, make that distinction between the wounded small child and the adult version of Anna. And just, sometimes it's as simple as saying, I invite the adult version of me to step forward and drive. And when we make that distinguishment, then the adult version of you can soothe the child in you that's afraid and reassure her of what you now understand is true of how safe you are and how you are resourced, well resourced, to be able to give yourself safety. Right? All those resources that a child doesn't have. And then when you can convince the child in you that the adult you will protect her, then that healing takes place and you don't need the external validation or acknowledgement of what occurred. Does that resonate? I'm trying not to get into any specifics.
Yes.
Resonate?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
I didn't realize that I was holding on to that part of it where I'm like, I'm fine with just being removed from.
But so as a kid, the only time you were safe from that kind of stuff was when you were physically removed from it. So as an adult, you're mimicking that, which tells you it's the wounded child that's driving. Because as an adult, there's all these other things you could do, right? But when we revert to how we would have protected ourselves as a child, being people pleasing, being the mediator between our fighting parents, whatever that behavior was that we developed as a coping mechanism and a safety valve as a kid, when we do that as an adult, it lets you know it's that wounded inner child that's stepping forward and being reactionary and driving this kind of somatic response that has you go, okay, we'll do whatever this wounded child needed to do. Okay. And so it's overly simplistic for people to say, oh, just be in the present moment. I'm like, well, there's a lot more detail to it than that, which I just shared. Okay.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
Thank you, Anna. Okay. Well, Christine, can you take a couple of minutes and just tell people, you've talked about these the amazing ways that you work with people. Just let people know how they can connect with you and learn from you.
Yeah, thank you. So I do the quickest, easiest way is I have a monthly class. It's just $25, and I've got a couple left. I'm gonna teach it through this year, and and so this Wednesday is which will be what, October 16th will be the next one, and then there'll be one in November and one in December, and they're called Your Energy Matters. And they're open for people to come. Anyone can come and attend. And then they're also up for sale on my website afterwards. And they really teach you about everything that impacts your energy and that makes, a difference in your inner energy and how you feel and your energetic hygiene. My private sessions are booked way out. I know that is a problem, and I apologize that I tend to book about 6 months to a year out. But I have something called small group sessions, and we just put 2 more up, the one in November, one in December. And those are limited to 12 people, and everybody is guaranteed to get to ask their spirit 2 questions. So that way people can get kind of a mini session and get their questions answered. And then I teach my style of hearing your spirit and doing energy work, I teach that series once a year. So at some point in the beginning of next year, I'll do the first attunement class. It's just a 1-day workshop. A couple months later, I do the second attunement class, which is a 2-day workshop. And then the third attunement is taught over 5 months. And that really is working on those skills of hearing your spirit, channeling healing energy, and using it to work on yourself and your loved ones. So that series will be available next year. You can just jump on my email list and then you'll get a notice of when I open up sessions and when I create new classes and all that sort of thing.
That's amazing. And it's christinelang.org, right?
Correct. Yes. Yeah.
Or don't
Dot
put
org.
.com because I did that and it didn't work.
Yeah, christinelang.org. And you can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook because when I get last minute cancellations, I post them on there because by the time I send out an email, they're gone in, 20 minutes. So I post any last minute cancellations, for on social media. So you can also follow me there. So
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have loved this. I feel like I felt great before we started and I feel like way better even. So
well,
thank you so much.
when you're with this kind of energy, it lifts everybody's vibration, right? And so that you're vibrating higher, so your healing processes are sped up. Everybody benefits from that. So
Yes, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Thank you for listening to the recording if you couldn't make it live. And Christine, thank you so much. It's
thanks
been
for having
wonderful.
me. I appreciate it.
You have a great day, everybody. Bye.